Alright, let's get ready to talk about this movie, bub. How's it going, guys? So I'm here with my Wolverine Pez dispenser, and I'm here to do a spoiler review on the movie of Logan. Now, this is actually the final movie in which Hugh Jackman is going to be portraying Wolverine as we've come to know and love within the X-Men franchise. Now, as the title of this movie does suggest, this is a spoiler review. So if you guys have not seen this movie yet and do not want to get spoiled on what happens within this movie, definitely go out and see it. It's been out for over a week, so definitely go out and see this movie because not only is it a great X-Men movie, but this is a great movie overall. The marketing that led up for this movie I think was really, really good, and it really set the tone that we were going to be seeing and that was going to be portrayed in this movie, because when the first trailer dropped with that Johnny Cash song over like the tones and the glimpses and the images of the trailer, I was like, damn, this is going to be a really dope ass movie, because not only did it have a darker theme, and yes, it was going to be rated R, that it was a tone shift from what we kind of saw from previous X-Men movies. And this was not going to be your typical superhero movie. This is going to be a lot more personal, a lot more inward looking, and a more character driven story than we're used to seeing in high budget action superhero movies like the Avengers. This is definitely on the other side of the spectrum, but I think this was well needed, and this was a great movie. Now, I've seen every X-Men that has come out to date. I've seen all 10 of the films, with 9 of them actually having Hugh Jackman in some type of role, whether it be a main role, a cameo, or small role. Now, I'm not including Deadpool within those movies because technically he didn't appear in that movie. You saw his face either on a magazine or on Deadpool's face at the end of the movie. So now, with Hugh Jackman, this is his final portrayal in the movie of Logan, and just, like my history with this franchise, I was kind of hoping from what I saw within the trailers that I was going to be getting from a particular scene in an earlier X-Men movie, and that's why I was kind of hoping this movie was going to go, and yes, it does. And the movie I'm talking about is X-Men 2. Now, I grew up rewatching that movie so much, and there's one scene in particular in that movie that I would rewatch over and over and over again, and that is the scene in the X-Men mansion to where the military is moving in and kidnapping all the mutant children, and here we have in this scene Wolverine going berserker rage mode against all of the military, killing them in the hallways, just the way that he stabbed people and just would cut them up. I loved that scene so much. I would literally sit down, put the DVD in, go to that scene in particular, and then just rewatch it over and over again. And from the trailers for the Logan movie, that's the type of tone and kind of what I was hoping that we were going to get as Wolverine in this movie. And boy, did they deliver on that tenfold. So this movie overall has 3 main characters that we follow throughout this movie, that being Logan, Professor X, and Laura, aka X-23. Now, the beginning of this movie really does set the tone and the R rating that was like portrayed for this movie. And I just gotta say, oh boy, does it like let you know right off the bat that this is a much different X-Men movie than previous films, because in the beginning we see Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, aka Logan, just down in the dumps. He's a lot older, a lot more grisly, and more beaten down by the world. And to see him doing these odd jobs as like as a driver, and then him having to wake up and actually sleeping in his car, and to just wake up and see these hooligans trying to steal his hubcaps and his rims, and like trying to protect the car at all costs, because right now that is how he's making his money. And just to watch him, get beaten down by these people, and just to see how beaten down he is, because when he goes to retract, or like his claws eject out of his skin, one of them is like really slow on the uptake. Like 2 of them come out right away, but then one of them is just really slow to get out. And it's when they piss off Logan to the point where he doesn't give a shit anymore. This is when he starts decapitating people, ripping off limbs, and blood is flying everywhere. And just the F word being thrown around throughout this movie, you definitely tell that this movie deserved an R rating for the story that Mangold, Hugh Jackman, and everyone behind this movie wanted to tell. And as we come to learn through this movie, Logan is using this driving job to earn money for not only medication for Charles Xavier, but he's also saving up money to buy a boat for him and Professor X. And when we actually get to see Professor X down below the border in this warehouse that Logan is keeping him, we actually get to see his sanity is not what it used to be, and he's actually deteriorating into half the man that we've come to know him to be in the other X-Men movies. He's spouting out words of like Taco Bell commercials and other nonsense, and once he actually experiences these seizure-like states that happen throughout the movie, we actually get to see how devastating and how like much of a threat he is to everyone around him, and it makes sense why Logan is keeping him in such an abandoned warehouse with no one else around. And I just gotta say, hearing Patrick Stewart, aka Charles Xavier, say the fuck in this movie is absolutely hilarious, and kind of throws you back a little bit, because Charles Xavier seems to be, you know, the proper man. He's the father figure, and everyone kind of looks up to his character. But to see how beaten down he is, and he just doesn't give any fucks in this movie, it's just funny and a new light that we actually see Charles Xavier in. But I love the portrayal that Patrick Stewart gave in this movie, and it just fit the overall tone of the Logan movie. But this is when the plot of the movie actually reveals itself. You know, as Logan's doing his jobs as a driver, we come across X-23, and his job basically for this movie ends up being to escort Laura, aka X-23, from the Mexican border all the way up to the northern border up in Canada, up in North Dakota. And so that's where the road trip part of this movie kind of takes place, to where we have Logan, Professor X, and Laura, aka X-23, on this road trip like movie, and it builds like this father and son, but also father and daughter relationships as they grow and develop throughout this movie. And I love that aspect of it, because it's a new light we get to see all our characters in, and it just delves really into their characters, and we get to learn just more about them. Now I just gotta say, X-23, total badass. Her fight scenes in this film are absolutely amazing, and I just gotta give props to the actress who portrayed X-23, and I have it written down right here, Dafne Keen. This child actress did an amazing job, and she wasn't an annoying child actress, and she was actually a competent child actress. She is just brilliant, she is badass, she is fierce, and you actually believe she's doing all of those stunts, and she actually does most of the stunts in this movie, which is baffling to me, and it just shows how dedicated they were to this movie. And just to see X-23 and just her ferocity, her anger, and just to see how much of a clone she actually is of Logan, just in a young child body, is absolutely amazing to watch. But I was also wondering going into this film, were they going to introduce the toe claws for X-23's character? Because you didn't really get to see it all in the trailers, and I stopped watching the trailers as this movie was coming out. And I was really pleased to see that within this movie, not only does she have the two claws, she also had the foot claws as well. And when they got introduced, they didn't overuse them in this movie, but when they did use them, I was like grinning ear to ear. I was like, yes, they finally did it. I was like, I'm so happy to when they are faithful to the comics, and just to watch Dafne Keen's portray of X-23, and just the action scenes, especially at the warehouse, are just some of the best fight scenes I've seen of any child in any movie. And can I just say too that X-23 doesn't talk for half of this movie, and it's just amazing that this little child actress is able to actually convey so much emotion, and actually with no dialogue whatsoever, what this character is doing and feeling at every moment. This child actress is absolutely amazing, and when she does talk in this movie, it's some of the I laughed out loud at this part, because when Logan is just talking with her, and then she starts blurting out in all Spanish, and he's like, no comprende, I don't understand, and then she starts punching him in the face because she wants to be taken to the promised land. I got a kick out of that part, and it was just like a laugh out loud moment, and there were a lot of people that laughed out loud at that moment too. But I just got to give major props to Dafne Keen, who portrayed Laura, X-23. Absolutely amazing. But as we go throughout this movie, we're starting to learn more and more about why this apocalyptic-like timeline that they're living in, to where there are no mutants. It seems like the mutants have either died off or have been killed, and no more mutants are being born. It's like, well, what happened in the past that led to the events of this movie? And we do get hints here and there. They don't come outright and actually tell us as the viewer, saying like, oh, this is what happened, this is what happened, and this is what happened. But they leave hints and nuggets here and there for us to speculate on. And one of those actually deals with one of the seizure scenes that happens within this movie, because when they end up going to hotel, there's a seizure scene to where Charles Xavier experiences a seizure in a major populated area, and it's up to Logan to basically go in and try to stop him with the medication. And the reason it's happening is because the main villains of this movie that are trying to hunt down X-23 have Xavier cornered. They're all frozen within this seizure-like state that Xavier's having, and only Logan can move. And when he's clawing his way through this hotel hallway, and like the henchman sees him coming, he's like, shit, I can't move, and he just takes his claws and just rips it right through everyone's skull as he's going through this movie. I was like, this is a badass scene. It's probably one of my favorite scenes in this movie, but there's another one that comes up later on. But as Wolverine is basically getting to Xavier, he administers the medication that he needs, and the seizure stops. All of the henchmen just fall to the ground because they just got knives through their skulls, and they're just dead. They are out for the count. all done. But then we actually get to learn, like, as the news is being said, it seems to be that there was an event in Westchester several years ago before the start of this movie. Now, if you guys are unaware, Westchester, New York is actually where the X-Men mansion is held within the X-Men universe. And to note that there was actually a seizure-like state with Xavier that happened there, and they say several people were injured, but also it gets cut off, but they say 7 people of the, and it says about to say X-Men were killed. And it just baffles me, and it's just like, it hits your heart right here to know that Xavier, who loved his students, who loved all of the X-Men, and he cared so much for them, that he was the one responsible for their deaths. It's just heartbreaking to see his character, and it weighs heavy on him because he knows he's responsible, and he has to live with it, even though the events of these seizures he can't control. Even though, yes, he does have medication, but it's just a sad state he's in, to where the world's most powerful mind is now the world's most dangerous weapon. Now, there are some great fight scenes in this movie. There are action beats, but again, this is a more character-driven movie, but I want to highlight those action scenes because they are just completely badass. The warehouse scene to where they have to escape the villains as they're coming in and looking for X-23 is some of the best fighting that I've seen in an X-Men movie, and also for Wolverine, because not only do you have Logan going in and just cutting people left and right, you have X-23, who already previously decapitated a henchman's head, threw it at them, came at them with such like stature and just rage, and just the way her claws came out, and just how she went so berserk mode on all of them. This scene was just one of the best scenes in here, but we also had the farm fight scene. This fight at the farm is just a sad but badass moment, because not only do we have the death of Charles Xavier in this scene, but I didn't believe it at first to be real, because it seemed like a dream sequence to where we have Charles Xavier telling Logan about all of his faults and how, like, this is the best night he's had in a very, very long time. And as Logan comes into view, he seems a lot younger, a lot more youthful, but then we see his arm, his hand, go right on Charles' chest, and the knives come out, the claws go back in, and right there we see Charles basically looking on at Logan, and he believes that Logan just killed him. And it's sad too, because when Logan does show up and he carries Charles out of there, he's pleading with him and he's telling him, "It wasn't me. It wasn't me." I'm like, oh my god, that hurts me right there, because of the father-son dynamic they have within this movie, and just him to actually plead to him as he's dying, as his final words, just to say, "Charles, it wasn't me that killed you." So here we have the introduction of X-24, aka the younger and more animalized Wolverine. So I like this part because it's a good dichotomy between the old man Logan and the Wolverine. Here we have the old, beaten down, doesn't want to take any shit anymore, and here we have the Wolverine, who's the younger, more berserk, more animalistic nature of Logan, now personified as an actual being. And the fight that they have is brutal, and just how aggressive and animalistic it is. It's some of the best fight scenes for Wolverine, and I'm just watching that in awe as I'm watching this movie, just like, this is absolutely amazing. And this continues on even with the final fight that they have between Wolverine, or Logan, and X-24. And because that final fight is brutal, the fact that he can come back from even being crushed by a truck, and when he stabs Logan through that tree trunk, and it's up to X-23 to finish the job, and she actually takes that adamantium bullet that has been shown throughout this movie as like the MacGuffin, you could say, that is going to be the final thing that's going to kill X-24. She loads up that gun, aims at X-24's head, obliterates his skull, he falls to the ground, and then we have this final moment between father and daughter, between Logan and Laura, and it's such a tearjerker too. I mean, I didn't cry in it, but I felt so sad in this moment, because not only do you have the death of Logan in this scene, but you also have Laura losing her father figure, and she even says as he's dying, like, "Daddy." It's just so sad. I'm just like, holy shit, they are actually killing off Logan. And it's a beautiful send-off too, because this is Hugh Jackman's final portrayal as the Wolverine. And to send him off, to kill off the character, I think is just a beautiful, beautiful way to do it, and to actually close the book on his character. And the film ends, with a burial scene as Laura citing off a few words, and as they're about to walk away, we actually get to see her turn around, and there's this cross hanging right above his grave, and she takes it out and it turns it into an X. And when I saw that, I got two meanings out of that. The first one being the fact that he was an X-Men, and the second one being that he was Weapon X. And I saw that and I was like, wow, that is such a good good part to put into as the final moment for this movie, and the movie ends. No post-credit scene, nothing like that, and I left this movie so satisfied. I know I didn't cover everything in this review, but I definitely want to hear from you guys your thoughts on this movie, because I thought this movie was very well done. I just overall loved the themes in this movie, the tone of this movie, the character moments within this movie are some of the best parts, especially between Charles Xavier and Logan. So I want to hear from you guys. Did you guys see this movie, and what did you think? Was it overhyped for you? Was it underhyped for you? What were your favorite moments from this movie? And did you think that this was the perfect send-off for Hugh Jackman's portrayal as Logan, aka Wolverine, aka James Howlett? What did you think of this overall movie? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And I do plan on doing more type reviews on Marvel movies and DC movies on my channel. I want to make this a regular thing because I want to add comic book related stuff on this channel. So if you guys like seeing this type of content, subscribe to my channel. I want to talk with all of the comic book fans that are also in love with this content as well, and we can just get the conversation started going back and forth. So that's my spoiler review on the movie Logan, and I'm really looking forward to the future comic book movies that are going to be coming out this year, and I really can't wait to see what else is in store for 2017. So anyway guys, that's it for this review, and until my next review on a comic book movie or any other content that you watch on my channel, I'll talk with you guys then. Alright guys, see you later.